Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another impactful, insightful session. My name is Adeshola. I would be a moderator for this session. I would like to say welcome and good evening to each and every one of you. Let's remember our class rules as we come into the class. Let's endeavor to place our names in the chat box and the pseudo political parties that we represent. This evening, the 2nd of September, Saturday, we will be taking on communications in politics. And I want to believe that we have our facilitator in the house already. If not, I'm sure he will be here by the time we start in a few minutes. So would like to implore party chairpersons to please go nudge your party members to please come into class so that we can kick off in earnest, okay? And for the benefit of those who are not aware, the session would hold between an hour, 30 minutes, maximum an hour, 45 minutes, after which we will take questions either by show of hands or you can place the questions in the chat box. We will retrieve them from there and have a facilitator handle same. Right, thank you. We will start in 4 minutes, 17:05 precisely. So please, as I said earlier, let's make sure that we have our members on the call so that we can start and finish on time. Thank you and see you soon. Okay. So it's 17:05 and we start as promised. Thank you, party chairpersons, for nudging your members. We are not up to 50 yet, but I'm sure we will get to that mark pretty soon. Thank you and welcome everyone once again. Please remember to place, okay. Please remember to place your names, your full names, as you want to see them on the certificates will be given after the end of this cohort. Just place them like that in the chat box and the studio parties that you represent, okay? Let's kickstart in earnest. Today, we will be taking on communications in politics, and we have one of our very, very respectable board member of the ECN. He's a trustee of the ECN, but I'll briefly read his profile so that you can have a feel and a mental peek of the person that will be speaking to us today. His name is XII007. He's a brand engagement consultant. He's a politician. He's a public speaker, a security commentator, social analyst, and a serial mediapreneur. He ran for a seat in the National Assembly to represent Kogi East Senatorial District in the 2019 elections. He is also the country director for SDG Radio and the founder of Climate Action Nigeria. He is a University of Abuja alumni and the prestigious class of '96 at the Nigeria Defense Academy, where he trained as a master in defense and strategic studies. He's an avid martial arts enthusiast, a climate reality leader, and alternative dispute resolution practitioner. It's brilliant. He's a member board of trustees, Electoral College Nigeria, as I mentioned earlier. He was born into a family of 4 siblings, and he's a Catholic, married with 2 children, wonderful children. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to invite Mick welcome. And with emojis, let's welcome Mr. XII007 as he takes us on communications in politics. Over to you, sir. You have the virtual lectern.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hi, good evening, sir.
Can we hear?
We can hear you perfectly.
Okay. Please, I trust we've read through the slides.
Okay, you need the slide shared, right? So?
Yes, but if you have shared it earlier, that would have been good, so they will have an idea.
Yes, we had shared it with them. I mean, do you want us to put it up on the screen?
Yes, please.
Okay. Charlie, please, could you help do that? Thank you. We're good to go, sir.
Okay, perfect. So, good evening, everyone. We'll be having conversations on communications in politics, a focus on social media. And so I won't want us to delve so much on the social mediums and how to use them, because there's a whole lot that we need to speak about. So much is happening now in the world and we need to talk about it. But as a prelude to our conversations, what we always love to share is the fact that the internet never forgets, of which I know many of us understand what that means by implication. When we say the internet never forgets, we see scenarios of present and past political office holders who have held a particular idea about their role or their perception of politics over time. And then for whatever reason, they have now either decamped political parties or have changed their local standing and now speaking differently, if I'll use that language. And so comments that they have posted on digital platforms in the past are now coming back to haunt them. I'm not putting names, but we know of a particular ministerial candidate that it is said that most of his posts in the past were partly due to why he could not get the position now. And so, in as much as you can borrow 500 MB from any of your telcos and have data to post or whatever, it is necessary that you take caution whenever you want to post, because the internet will never forget, and then the people will always remember. And so if you think you could just go and maybe just delete that post, Nigerians are one of the most interesting set of persons. A lot of people would have had screenshots and folders with those information waiting for the day that they'll unleash them on you. So, because the people will always remember, next you should ask, who are even these people that are even remembering? Because I know that many people don't really care about who the people are, but the people are the crux of the conversation. Without any set of persons, a government cannot exist. Without any set of persons existing in a particular geopolitical area, a government cannot hold sway over them, or hold sway, or draw its legitimacy, or indeed have an identity without these people. And so in our own case now, let's not go too far. We're talking about Nigerian politics here. So let's talk about the people of Nigeria. 36 states, including the Federal Capital Territory. We have 774 local governments. And so these people are actually me and you. And so if me and you are the people, it means we count and we matter. It means that our voices, our understanding, our opinions come to bear at certain times and relatively with regards to subject matter. And so being that our voices and opinion counts, and it's necessary that we should be held responsible also, before you think only the person that is issuing out that information is the one to be held responsible. That's why you come and then you see in the theoretical findings of communication, they define communication to be a process flow where information leaves from a source, it passes through a medium, and then this medium also correlates with the information that has been curated and passed through that medium message. That message now passes through a channel. So we can just suppose and say, okay, yes, the channel is the medium. And so that channel now expresses or publishes the information to the receiver. And we always like to let people know that the communication process is a continuum. It's a cycle. And because it's a cycle, when the receiver gets the information, there is some sense of engagement. Engagement in the sense that there's going to be a reply, as the Newton law of power, an equal or opposite reaction to the information that was issued or published. And so in this case now, that engagement serves as some measure of a reply to whoever issued the information. Amidst this entire process of the information moving from source to a medium or channel to a receiver, there's what we call noise. This noise are the distortions that may come in trying to understand the subject matter. My slides are not moving. I'm way ahead of what is on the screen now, though. So this noise is what we call the distortion that will appear in the conversation. And so it comes from either the mood of the person sharing the information, the context in which he's sharing the information, where he's sharing the information from, who he's addressing, age grade, the demographic he's addressing. So all of this amounts to what we call noise that can distort the communication process. So if you do not have all of that in question, you might not effectively perceive someone's communication to you at a particular time on a particular subject matter. So you need to have that in at the back of your head. Now, we're not just discussing communication, we're discussing political communication. So the two words, politics and communications, come to bear. We've already been taught over and over what politics is, the struggle for power, the need to attain power, the process to get power and hold power. But I would love to draw from Harold Laswell's definition of power and of politics when he says, politics refers to he who gets what, when, and how. Emphasis on what, when, and how. that is going to be the crux of our conversation today, and how the person puts conversations into the struggle for power, maintaining that power, talking about the power, talking about the activities that he's our power from. And so, being that we're talking political communication, let us do our own definition of political communication, still drawing from Harold Laswell's definition of politics. And so we'll say in political communication, it can simply be defined as he who says what, when, where, how, and with which medium. I repeat, he who says what, when, where, and with which medium. And so, obviously, the information needs to go from one place to another. And this person has some level of authority such that, or an influence, hence that you are listening to him. And then when is this information shared? Morning, afternoon, night, pre-election time, post-election time, during the time of inauguration, during the time of the swearing in, what have you? And then what medium is this information shared? And so we talk about the digital platforms, which we have mass mediums, we have digital mediums, we have social mediums, and what have you. So those are the things that we'll be having to bring to bear in this conversation. And so I presume we all understand our own definition right now of political communication as regards our conversations that we have or are going to have today. Yes, thank you, Dr. Abdul. The slides are not moving. I don't know who is in charge. Lisa, are you there? Let me just pause for a second, let the admin just get the slides moving.
Is this slide okay?
Yes, we're on the same page now. Let me just refresh back on this conversation. So we're talking about political communication, and it's a subfield of political communication, hence our conversations today. And our primary concern basically is responsiveness and engagement. And because we're talking about responsiveness and engagement, we thought to inference our conversation of political communication to he who says what to whom, how, and what effect. And so since we all know that now, let me just dive through the idea of social media. Let it not be as though we did not pick through those conversations. And so with regards to mediums, we have the website. Remember, in our conversations in the Politeracy and Governance class, these classes you go through seeks to arm you with tools to be ready to hit the ground running, if we use that language, in whatever content or character. Be you someone that wants to run for office, be you someone that works with the election management body, be you a citizen or a constituent, as the case may be you an influencer, or be you an individual located in an environment where the political process is taking place. You know how to be a valuable member of that society, either to yourself or to others. So that is the crux of our conversation. And so now back to web. So in the case of an individual trying to run for office, it is necessary that you have your presence available on the digital platforms. Digital platforms includes having a website. And so in trying to get a website, it is necessary that whatever website you are creating should be sharp and concise and as brief as possible. I can bet you that if the Electoral College's website was www.politeracyandgovernancecourse.com or .ng, most of us would have forgotten that website even when we're doing the enrollments, or even when you are trying
I think we lost him for a while.
Okay, I thought it was my network. Okay, so let's
No,
just wait.
I think we lost him. Yes.
Please let's exercise some patience whilst we try to get our facilitator back.
Hello.
Welcome
Sorry
back.
about that. Thank you very much. My telco is obviously playing games with me. So these are the issues we face in let me not in Nigeria. Let me not call us a third world now in this case, because we're not discussing our polarity now, because I don't know that to say we're third world or we're non-aligned. But all those languages, I'm sure you'd have gotten to discuss all those theories in class. Or if not, you get to discuss them soon. So talking about the website now, like I said, it needs to be brief, concise, and a catchphrase to make it easier for someone to make reference to at any particular time. Hence the website of the Electoral College and many other locations and many other. Take for instance, in my campaign, my website was akojiforsenate.com. Brief, concise, straight to the point. It gives you an idea of what the website entails and the information that you are going to see there. So now, what will be the basic constituents of your website? In the case of a campaign, and why we love to talk about the website before delving into other ones is because a whole lot matters in a campaign, in a website. If your website is not secure, be you running for office, a constituent, a business, or what have you, we have people that we call hackers, and we have the good ones called ethical hackers. And so the ethical hackers, can break into your website and change the narrative of the information that you have there, as such misrepresenting yourself or your idea or your organization. Take, for instance, now the Electoral College. Imagine if our security is not in place, we can just wake up one day and come and see X-rated information posted on our page as being represented as the Electoral College. You can imagine how embarrassing and stupefied we will all be to discover that something of that nature is being associated with us. So you need to ensure that the information, your website is secure, and then put out content that represents your information. And so if you're running for office, I'll be expecting to see an about the candidate button. The about the candidate button will have information about the candidate himself, and then where is he running for office from, his constituency. And then in the case of running for an executive office, I'll be expecting to see a manifesto. And then in case of someone running for a legislative position, we'll be expecting to see what we call a pledge. A pledge in the sense that he's saying, this is what I stand for, this is what my candidacy will represent. And I trust that we understand the difference between someone running for an executive office and a legislative office, because they are two different and distinct characters, especially when they come to vie for your attention to run for office or your time, as the case may be. That website also should be well managed such that your search engine optimization is on point. Not that when someone goes to search for your website on Google, for instance, and it appears on the 7th page of the search engine, me and you, we Nigerians, we do not have that much patience to scroll through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to identify exactly what they're looking for. If they don't find in the first page, if you go to the second page and your information is amiss and you're lost, and the idea that you had with regards to coming to check about your organization is gone completely, So then now we talk about mass mediums, that's digital platforms. Platform X or Twitter is usually referred to as a microsite because it has almost the entire composite of a website, but it is not a website. So let's just push that into what we call is social mediums. So we'll take that under social mediums. So we have mass media. We all know what mass media are. Mass media basically connotes the different means in which information can be shared. The one we know over time, using a genealogical pattern, let's say, starting from the town crier that we used to know, and then Tales by Moonlight, communications under the tree, town hall meetings, newspapers, radios, billboards, flyers. These are mediums in which you can express information on a large scale or as per the demographic in which you are trying to speak to, So if you have that in play, that serves as a means in which you can engage political communication, or you can pass out political messaging, or you can pass out information of some sort to people to understand what information you are trying to put out. And so because this exists, we have what we call media mentions. So there's what we call earned and unearned media. Earned media is media that you actually take out time, you go as a candidate or as a political office holder or as an election management body, you buy a slot on a TV channel and you do a 1-hour expose about your activities, and then you go. Or you buy a slot in a newspaper and you do an editorial, or you call people to a particular on a webinar, as the case may be, like we're having now, or you call people to a location and you serve them with information, and then please hope you're serving food too, because it's very important. You do that and then you have issued out the information. That is earned media because you paid for it. Unearned media now is people talking about that particular phenomenon. And so you see cases whereby I, as an individual, I say, okay, I see this person, he's running for so and so office, and I've read his manifesto, and I believe he'll be a strong candidate for this position. And should he win it, he will be a force to reckon with in discharging this particular responsibility. That is what we call unearned media. Or you see an individual, I live in a particular local government, and I know this person is vying for the local government chairperson. And I take my time to do door-to-door to talk to my own friends about his candidacy, telling my own friends that, see, I've seen this particular person, and I know he will be a great person to perform this job, especially when the person is doing that without being paid. Those are what we call unearned media. in total, they're all called media mentions. So we will not do so much about that. But all of this brings to bear the importance of a medium in which the information that will be issued out will go out to people, because no man is an island to himself. And as such, if you're trying to issue out information, you cannot issue out information to yourself and your family and then magically expect the world to find out about it. No, that is not possible. And so this information you're even issuing out, what exactly is the narrative of that information? What is the crux of your conversation? Are you talking about, as an election management body, you have offices in all the 36 states, including the FCT, you are following your work according to the directive issued to all the commissioners in all the, as per the departments, or you're running for office, and then you're running for office based on the instructions of your party. Remember, you cannot run for office amiss until that is changed in the Nigerian constitution. The political parties are the vehicles in which you run for and seek power and hold power in Nigeria as we have it for now. If it changes in the future, we'll adapt and we continue. We adapt and we'll continue. So the narrative is it as stated by the election management board, wherein you have primaries, one person will be selected as the sole candidate or elected as the case may be. And then after which you now go to the general elections, and upon winning of two-thirds majority or the highest vote count, you are now declared the winner, and upon the set dates, you will now be inaugurated or sworn in, or you collect your certificate, whichever means or sequence is published by the election management board. That will be exactly what you are going to follow through with regards to a narrative in this case. So if you are running for office and people are seeking an information of you or for you or about your candidacy, there is a need for you to control the narrative. And so why we talk about social mediums is because luckily for us now, we have mobile phones that all of these social mediums are already pre-downloaded on these devices. And so most of them, to open an account is relatively free. And so if it's relatively free, why won't you make your presence known there? We all know that our attention span is very short. And so if I'm on Twitter, for instance, and I'm consuming content about your information, and you put a link for me to go to Instagram, many a times people will not click that link because they want to be on Twitter. They did not come to be on Twitter to be redirected to Instagram, as the case may be, and vice versa between all the other apps. So if you're on Twitter, then make sure that the information you posted on Instagram is also curated and posted on that particular platform. Take, for instance, Twitter, or any other one that you actually seek to make sure that your presence is known. Because when people want to seek information from you or they are looking through, it should be good that for whatever platform they are, they should see information about your organization, your candidacy, or the election management board, about the country at large as a whole. We all know that as a country, we have Nigeria Gov as a official Twitter handle of Nigerian government as a whole, and they publish information about what is happening in government, political appointees, ministerial actions, press releases, and what have you. So if you know that they exist, obviously, even if you do not watch the 9 o'clock news, if you want to get a quick run through about what happened during the day, you can switch to Nigeria Gov page on Twitter, and then you get to give a whole lot of information. And so in trying to put some sort of definition to it for social media, we see it as computer-mediated technologies that facilitate the creation and sharing of text, audios, visuals, animations, artificial intelligence, or information, ideas, career interests, and likes via virtual communities and networks. And this is usually powered by the internet many a times. But some of those information are such that some can be viewed both online and offline. So I trust that we might know many other definitions. And then talking about the different types of mediums, there are like 1 billion social mediums now. Yesterday, for the first time, I enrolled on Blue Sky. I've not used that service before, so this is not a marketing advertisement. But so you see, there are a whole lot of platforms that exist, and we all know that Zuckerberg also now has his own rival for Twitter. So and soon I'm about to come up with my own social media. So I hope you guys enroll. Let's have those conversations and keep the conversation going on those platforms. But largely, we try to see or puts them into some form of categorization by saying we have networking apps, we have blogging apps, we have video sharing apps, we have photo sharing apps, and we have micro blogging apps. So in all of this, even if you will not be in all, it is necessary that between these five characters that we've identified, you can move the slide now. Between these 5 characters that we've identified, it will be necessary that you have a presence at least in one of them. And so if you are putting out video content, at least you should be on Vimeo, Vivo, YouTube, at least one of them, so that you can post your content, because you know Twitter cannot hold longer videos more than 5 minutes if you're having a professional page with sponsored ads and all that, you know. And then, excuse me, for networking, we have Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, Tumblr. For microblogging, Twitter for microblogging. We have the main blogging, our domain, your normal www, if we all remember, used to be WordPress. It's still WordPress because that's at the back end, you know, movable type, Blogger. And then you have photo sharing apps where it's just strictly pictures, less text, and you just get these conversations with platforms like Instagram, Flickr, Pinterest, and what have you. So it will be necessary that you have at least a presence in any of these 5 categorizations to be able to sell your information effectively and with ease with regards to the narrative that you're putting out. This narrative that you're putting out in question, I love to see the communication circle as a marketplace. A marketplace in the sense that a marketplace refers to a broad space where people come in to buy and sell, you know. And so if I'm coming to buy and sell, the possibility of having someone doing exactly the same thing as I am doing in the environment is very high. The possibility of having an equal and opposite competitor to my service or product is very high. The possibility that there will be so much noise in that marketplace is very high. The possibility that there might be a regulatory authority governing that marketplace existing is very high. The possibility that there'll be thugs and non-entities that want to come and stifle the process of that marketing or of that marketplace is also very high. And so the communication being a marketplace, we see the actions of people trying to promote or sell their products and services. Or you see in the case of people coming to do market research, you see in the case of people coming to do advertisements, all of this in that particular peculiar marketing place. Or if we might try to even see communication, interestingly, as a broad subset of marketing, because in political communications, remember, you are trying to sway people's opinions. You are trying to get them to understand what you are after. You're trying to buy their ideas into your own particular narrative. You're about to sell them what you think is right for them in this particular case. And so in talking about marketing, we see basically a management process in which goods and services are moved from the concept to its ideation to its production, either as a product or a service. And then this particular construct is now sold to a customer. And the customer now chooses to either offer money or give value to that particular construct. In the case of communication, the person gives out his time to listen to your words. In the case of a voting process, the person takes out his time to come and vote for you. In the case of an election management body, the person takes out time to tell you where your polling booth is and where you should walk towards when you're going to vote, the time for voting, how to vote, what not to do on voting day. You know, so there are different types of activities. Then you don't ask yourself, like I was trying to identify earlier, why the market? Why a marketplace? It's because, one, there exists a problem to be solved. Two, indeed, there's a product or service that cannot live in isolation. It needs to be sold, or the service needs to be rendered, you know. And then in trying to talk about the why market, let me use a political office holder as an example. He's running for office, and so he believes that every other person that has come before now is not doing the right thing. Let me just use an extreme position. And so he is coming to run for Senate to bring out the best of legislative proceedings, the best of oversight functions, the best of bills that are going to be produced or that is going to propose in Nigeria since jollof rice was invented. So the existence of a problem that needs to be solved is in play. And then because he has that product or service, or he has the best manifesto, he is coming out to offer himself to run for office in this particular time. And we all know that in the case of running for office, in some cases, it's because the people just have the right links or network to get the job done, and then they know that they'll be voted into power. My father was the president for 46 years, and so I was his vice president for 46 years. And so now that he's tired, I, as his son, will take over power from my father, and then I'll continue ruling, whether the people like it or not. As we've gotten to see over time in Africa, in the politics of power play and leadership, and nobody says anything, and then the people just shove it down their throats. And then now we're having incessant coups happening up and down for whatever best reasons known to the military for jumping into power as they do whenever they come into play. It could be that the person is running for office because he has a passion to express himself. And so most of these people, unfortunately, that have all this passion to express themselves end up not having the financial muscle to be able to push those conversations. And so, yeah, candidacy or the running for office gets a little bit skewed to the side. And then for some people, they see it as a job. It's my job to save my people. And then because it's a job, I want to run for office, and upon assumption of this particular role, I will do the job effectively. So those are basically the reasons why we use the word market to be able to quantify or equate the idea of the marketplace. We now see in this marketplace, there are certain principles of marketing. Remember, we talked about this individual. And so if the person sees himself as having a product or service to offer, the product comes to be. And then that product is going to come at a price. And so if you're running for office, the first price you're going to pay first is offering yourself to run for that office. And then the next is to buy your form from your political party. Next is to put in your energy, resources, value to win your primaries. And then after winning your primaries, you now put in your very best foot forward to see that you win the general elections. You see, in all of these processes now, there's what we call promotion. This promotion basically is trying to put yourself out there. And the promotion also comes to be, like I talked about, earned and unearned media. When you come and then you pay for time on different mass mediums to showcase your ideas, or you invite people to a particular location. You see, this makes you promote your information. And because you're promoting this information, in the case of a town hall, you're obviously inviting them to a particular place to come and have these conversations with you. So we're talking about social media now. We'll just look generally. When we did the categorizations into the 5 platforms, networking, blogging, video sharing, microblogging, and photo sharing, we know that largely social media handles are brought to question. And so looking broadly like at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube, all of these platforms have their code of conduct or messaging technique. And so for Facebook, you can drop as much text as you want in that post and it will go through. For Twitter, you cannot do that. You are limited by the text. But thanks to the advancements, you now have what we call threads. And so you can break your text into bubbles called threads and post them. Same for LinkedIn. It also has a limit with regards to your text. And then same also for YouTube. And then remember, these platforms, you can post pictures, text, graphic imaging. And so for pictures, you need to ensure that the pictures you're going to be posting are based on the dimensions that are formatable for that platform. And that is why you see some people post some things on Instagram and you see the picture. One is looking good, but the second picture, the person's head is cut off in the image. Why? Because the images that they used were not sized for that particular platform. But you can see that those same images now, if you take it to Facebook, you post them very well and to go and all the images will show in full. So you need to understand the code of governance on these platforms. If not, your information will either be bad, or you will not be able to post that information, or you will not be able to pass the messaging exactly. I will not be taking all the platforms one by one because we do not have enough time and we have a whole lot more to discuss. So I believe we're all active users of social mediums, and so we understand. Why I just want to let you know is just make sure you understand the code of governance on this platform. And if you understand that, you'll be able to know how to use them for your messaging. Remember, we talked earlier about source, messaging, channel or medium, and then receiver. So by the time you know what you're doing and you understand the code of governance, you'll be able to use these platforms. We go to questions to ask before posting on any digital medium, either doing an editorial in a newspaper, either coming on air, on TV, or on radio, or on a webinar, as the case we're having. You need to understand basic underpinnings. Does this particular post you want to do have value? Does this particular information speak to your target audience? Is the topic you are speaking related to that particular role you are running, either running for an office election management body, or you are just a bystander, or you're just a visitor in a foreign country? Does that particular update match the best practices of the social network, which is what we just discussed now? And so I go to talk about, you want to run for office in Kogi East, and then all of your conversation is centered around Nasarawa and the FCT. Or instead of talking about your candidacy, you are talking about the mistakes that your opponent is making. Or you are comparing your candidacy to the way someone is running for office in Cross River or in Kaduna, as against taking out that particular 5 minutes that people have given to you to listen to you, to talk about exactly what you want to do or what you stand for in that particular election. And so if you do not know what that update is and the value that it needs to speak about, or the people that you want to speak to and appeal to, your information will be completely amiss, or as English calls it, ambiguous and not understandable. And that is a grave sin against your communication. And either your communications manager or your publicity secretary, somebody needs to be fired because something has gone wrong in the process, which you do not want to happen at any time for whatever reason, as the case may be, And so, like we talked about, there's a framework, or there's need for you to have a communication strategy for whatever it is you want to do. And like I said, are you running for office? Are you an election management body? Are you a government in itself? Are you a local government chairman? Or are you a business owner? You need to understand the need to create a communication strategy. So because we're talking about social media now, we say you need to have a social media strategy that will work for you. And we can see, you already have the slides, so you can break through all of that and then understand what we are trying to put there. So return of investment on your social media strategy. How do you manage correspondence? We have people that have 1 million followers, and then people try to engage with them and they do not respond. Remember, we talked about the communication process being a continuous loop. And so the information that moves from the source comes to a receiver, and that receiver, the information can now be reviewed, engaged, and a reply now comes, and the reply now starts the process again as the information source, and it's going up through that cycle. And so in the entire conversation, what are the returns of information, returns on interest? Remember, I said no communication is amiss. It's either a tactical attempt to throw you off the truth, to tell you about the truth, to speak to you about a particular subject matter, or in many cases, to not say anything, because not responding is actually a response. And so it left for you now to understand what that actually means. And so you need to learn to manage your correspondence on social media. If you want to be an active user, learn to reply, engage, smile, reply, do giveaways, as the case may be. Engage your people. People are asking you, okay, come, we have 4 local governments in our state, in your constituency. It is seen that over time, the majority tribe has always been winning this particular position. And then whenever they win, they only do things for their own majority tribes, and then the minorities are completely excluded. What are your plans towards the inclusion of these minority tribes or minority local governments but when you come to power, you need to respond. You're not responding in that case, basically tells them you do not care, or you have a lackadaisical attitude concerning minority, as the case may be. So there's a whole lot that comes in. And so you need to learn how to manage your communication strategy effectively so that whatever it is you are saying comes out as a narrative that you want to push out. Then, like I said, you do not have communication amiss. And so you need a means in which you can be able to track the information that leaves you. Okay, you put information to flyers. How many flyers did you produce? 1,000 flyers about your candidacy. Where and where was it shared? Was all shared? Are these some still left in the store? You know, you are using social mediums. You posted on Twitter. How many people did it reach? Did it reach the right demographic? Because if you go and post on Twitter to run for office in Port Harcourt, in Rivers State, and the people consuming your content are all in the FCT, you're already having a problem. And so if you are doing your promotions on that post, you need to target the right demographic or the people that are going to view it such that your information is not amiss. You know, so all of these analytics are things that you bring to bear in trying to know whether the information you have issued out reached the right people and is evoking the right response. You know, sometimes people you try to use what we call trend tracking, and so because it's Christmas time, you're sending everybody happy Merry Christmas, and then in doing that, you have put your small picture, your political party logo, and then your byline, running for Senate or running for governor, as the case may be. Use the opportunity to sell. So there are various mediums in which you can sell your candidates. You know, talking about social media, in this social reporting and social listening to know about your earned and non-earned media, there are different platforms you can use. Brand mentions, mailed water, good suits, you know. So all of these social listening tools are things that you use to keep track of your conversations on social media. What are they talking about you? What are they saying about you, and how you can tap into all of those conversations, you know? So you now go to, remember we talked about our definition of political communications to he who says what, when, to whom, and how. And so you go into basic mannerisms of how do you sell out these conversations? When do you put out this messaging? Who are you giving out this messaging to? What mannerisms are you using to pass out this information? Are you choosing the right mediums at the right time? And then the information you're putting out, is it as per your communication strategy or the narrative you have put in place? And so we talk about how to talk. You want to declare your personal declaration for running for a particular office. Let's say the exalted position of the presidency. And you do that with only 3 people in presence, and you expect the entire Nigeria to know, that's going to be a challenge. The easiest way to transact for simple could be your birthday, your wedding anniversary, your school reunion. And so at that time, you seize the opportunity to now say, hello, friends and family, I am running for office. And then in saying that, you need to know how to express this idea to your people. And so you will not wait when the environment is heated, you are staging a walkout, you know, in a particular meeting, and that's when you now want to pass an important information. No, you need to know when to send out this information. Because if you do not send it at the right time, and then there's no such thing as a perfect time, but you at least you basically gauge the audience and know when to express that message. If you don't say it, 1, they might forget. 1, 2, they might not take you seriously. Some people might not even know you said anything because there's so much noise around your conversation. And so in talking about who to talk to, if you are having a targeted conversation, you need to know that you are speaking to a particular demographic, and it is that demographic you're appealing to, or you're speaking to, or you're basically trying to let them understand what you want to say. And then talking about mannerisms, I'm sure we've seen in Western democracies, you see when Barack Obama is having a conversation and it's streamed on the news channels, and some days his sleeves are folded, some days his sleeves is down, some days he's wearing a suit, some days he's just wearing just his packet shirt, some days he's wearing a t-shirt, some days he's wearing a face cap. All of this are not communication amiss. Or some days he's wearing a particular black shoe and is a little bit scuffed, so he doesn't look too posh. So I don't expect you to be running for office and you're coming to speak to people in the farms, and then you come with a suit, a tie, flashy shoes, and a convoy. You're coming to speak to market women and market men, and you're dressed in white. You're obviously come to tell us, you're not coming to speak to us, you're coming to show us how on a high horse you are and how condescending every other person should be. Yes, you're running for office, you just need their votes after all, and then they should just vote you and then go to hell. That is not the way. So you need to understand the mannerisms, or you're talking and you're speaking in high tones, or you're doing posts on social media and they're typing in capital letters. Those are basic things that you need to understand how to put those messaging, because it is said in language that if you are writing in capital letters, you are basically shouting at your audience, which you do not want to do. And so in talking about the medium now, and so we see being that you want to achieve wider reach. And so I'm having my birthday party today, and I'm hoping to announce my candidacy for presidency. And so aside the people I'm talking to around me, I live stream the birthday party so that a wider audience that is not there can also still pick into that conversation and listen to what I have to tell them about what I want to do, in this case, running for presidency. And so that tells you about the type of mediums you will use. And so you will know whether you want to live stream it on this particular TV station or this particular media platform, So basically, when you must talk, these are the things you need to put to bear. And so remember, the crux of the matter is controlling the narrative. Controlling the narrative. And with regards to mannerisms, let me just put it into 4 broad patterns. When you release information or when you receive information, are you reactionary? Are you progressive? Are you empathetic? Are you diplomatic? Are you Republican? Are you democratic? So those are the basic things you need to understand in mannerisms. And then, because you know who you are speaking to, you basically enter the shoes of what we call a psychologist. And we all know that psychology is a scientific study of the mind and behavior of people, and basically looking about their conscious and unconscious phenomenon, thinking about their feelings and their thoughts, and it could be seen largely as an academic discipline. And so in trying to even communicate to people, you end up being a pseudo-psychologist, or you be a psychologist. And if you basically have the resources to bear in a communications team, it's necessary to have a psychologist in your communications team, because it will help with regards to curating your messaging and how you send out this messaging. So take, for instance, now you are selling, you have a shop and you sell breakfast. I do not expect your promotions to be appearing at lunchtime. I expect your promotions to appear during the hours of 6 a.m. to say 11 a.m. And then I expect you to be buying a slot on radio, so around say 9, 10 p.m. And so you're preparing their minds to come to your shop to buy breakfast the next day. So if you do not know when to put out that messaging, you end up doing promotions for nothing, because the time you're telling me about breakfast is at lunchtime, and before breakfast, it will take me close to 11, 12 hours. And so if I've consumed your information now, I might forget. And if I forget, that is the problem, So let's leave that out. Let's come back to our political communication process. Aside all we've spoken about, we want to isolate the following, which you have on your screen. One of the ways in which we engage in a conversation that's a tete-a-tete between the people and the masses, the people in power, is in a political party. That's why we advise people to join political parties, because you cannot, from without, influence the type of people that will be put out there to govern you. You cannot influence the type of manifesto that these persons will take into power and try to work for you. Like we know in Western democracies, we have Democrats and Republicans. And so you know that if a Democrat wins presidency, we need, or we expect so and so from the person. And so the way the politicians and the electorate communicate in this case now is they join the party, they put their weight on a particular individual, the person wins the primaries and now becomes their official flag bearer. And then the person is going to carry their thoughts, ideations, wishes, and values to the polls. And when he's at the polls, they, as members of the political party, will now strive to canvass for votes to ensure that their own person wins. This is the communication process. Or are you talking about the political process of electioneering? In this case now, the political communication here is between you, the people, and the election management body. The election management body now, in our own case, INEC, when did they put out the information for people to come and register to vote or be voted for? When did they put the timeline to register to vote? When is that registration closing? When will campaign start? When will campaign stop? When is the election day which you cast your votes? After casting your votes, when will the results be read? When the result is read, when will you receive your certificate of return? After your certificate of return, when will you be inaugurated? After your inauguration, what are post-election tribunal options available? And then if the person presents a valid case in the tribunal, can you be removed from that position? So you can see political communication is still taking place in this case, but largely between you and, in this case, the election management board. Presently in Nigeria, we have a case wherein we have an election petition in the tribunal, and then now they're expecting the judiciary to release their own information or to do their own job from their own side. This is a conversation. Or in the case where an individual is coming to represent us and he's not doing the job well, and then we want to recall the person back from that position, what are the process or the requirements to put a recall in place? All this you can only know if you engage with the election management board. Or is it a referendum we're bringing to bear? Why is even the referendum coming at this particular time now? Do we have it? Is it something that is being generally used in Nigeria? And then they say a referendum largely, it seeks to allow the individuals and citizens to petition a process, and it's not out of law. It's something that is in the core of law within the jurisdiction of the constituency and within the legal rights of the people to request for. And so we seldomly use referendums in Nigeria. And then for recall, we only have 2-3 cases, if I'm not mistaken, in Nigeria as a whole, wherein the electorate, the constituents have requested to recall their political office holder. A town hall meeting wherein we are in a particular space and someone is speaking to us about a particular concept. And in this case, we're running for office, the election management board, it could be a government informing us about details. This is political communication. Or a case wherein you send letters, social media DM, social media mentions, dear at Nigerian government, what is happening to the road between Ikeja and Obakran? So these are means in which you engage in some level of communications between these particular persons, albeit political conversations. So remember, what is key is that an information is curated and created and shared. When it's created and shared, this information goes through a medium. And when it goes through that medium, what is that information or that narrative that you're trying to put out there? Is that narrative, is it according to the code of conduct of the medium you're using? Is it according to the dictates of the Nigerian Constitution? Is it an ethically responsible statement that you are putting out? Or is it a statement that is fueling the divide between the north, south, east, and west, Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, Tiv, Jukun, Igala, Igbira, and what have you? So all of these are things that are brought to bear in the entire political communication process. Earlier on, we talked about, I didn't go into details, but the perceptive theory. The way you perceive an individual affects how you issue them information. And so you see people selectively giving you attention with regards to the information you've issued out. You see people selectively choosing what to pick and drop about the information you've shared. And so that is why when you see an individual go to defend his case in the National Assembly on why he should be a minister or not, and they pick and drop the information that they want to ask him and not asking it in its entire context. And so you see now they are trying to push their own narrative. So it's a whole lot that engages in political communication. And we need to know that political communication, in as much as it's a subset of communication, holds sway in almost every facet of your life. Remember, we ended up our definition, or as drawn from Harold Laswell quote of he who gets what, when, or how, which is pursuit of power, onto our own definition of he who says what, to whom, when, where, and with which medium. So you see that these particular details affect our life in its entirety. So whether you're a business owner, you're applying to run for office, you exist as a constituent in a particular geographical area, you want to vote, you don't want to vote, all of these are things that we brought to bear at every single time. And so they cannot be taken lightly, So I presume I've been able to run through, because 1 hour for political communication class is never enough, So I hope I've been able to give you a general idea of what messaging is. And now to play into what happens or what's happening in West African area, we talked about the whole ideas of coups in passing, and we see that the military is coming into power and then they are stating their messaging. Do you notice that there is a pattern in which all of them are bringing out their messaging? First, they take over power and then they go to the national stations and do a briefing for everybody to see. And then you see a pattern whereby the present persons in power are captured. And even these persons in power, either captured or put behind bars or whatever you have, are also using a certain character of messaging to evoke international response, to invoke sympathy, empathy to their position. In this case, they being overthrown from power. So the entire messaging is a continuum which you need to make sure that at every single line and at every single dots of I's and crossing of T's, you have your narrative spot on, and that narrative is what you are issuing out at every single time. And so, Lisa, I know I'm already past my timing. We started 5:05, and so I'm ending 6:07. So I've stolen 2 minutes of your time. So do we have feedback so we can run through those feedbacks quickly before it gets too late and we've taken the best of your evenings? Thank you.
Okay, sir. All right. Thank you so much, sir. We would ask if they have questions or comments, they can raise their hands and then we can unmute them to speak concerning what has been shared so far. So do we have anyone who has comments or a question? You can indicate by raising your hands or you can place them in the chat box. Okay, Chinedu, I see your hand. Ophocletus, I see your hand. I think I saw Chinedu's hands first. So I'll ask you to unmute and then we'll take Cletus. Okay.
Hello, greetings everybody. Thank you for the session. It was wonderful. I am politically exposed. One. Secondly, I am also interested in politics because I participate in it, especially in the areas of statecraft. So I want to ask a very good question that I think probably maybe you'll be able to provide answers. Now, my question is based on the areas of ethics. Based on the area of ethics, whereby someone like myself, we, after sharing proposals, because one of us, we have our own internal political preferences, including the party in which we tend to represent sometimes. What do you think that people like myself can do in terms of being professional and at the same time knowing full well that sometimes the job you are doing is to the detriment of the public? What do you think that someone like me can be able to do in that aspect?
Okay, we're talking about social media, we're talking about communication, we're talking about ethical responsibility. So first, when we talked about the mediums, the first thing I said is, for whatever messaging, no matter how beautiful your narrative is, if you do not understand or follow the code of governance on that platform, your information will be amiss or will be removed, or you will not be able to post your information on another platform. And so it behooves on you to be as professional as you are as possible, be as courteous as possible in passing out the information based on our discussion about mannerisms, your knowledge of who you are messaging to. Like I said, you have to be a psychologist if you do not have one on your team. So it's the knowledge of all of this in bits that helps you to know how to put your messaging and to know when to issue out that messaging and to know exactly how to control or to put that narrative together. And so in your quest to be professional, you need to have all of this. You need to take all of this into consideration, because if you don't do that, like I said, your information will be amiss or ambiguous, or nobody will basically understand what you are saying, even if you want to be professional, as the case may be. I hope I answered your question. Okay, Ophocletus, can we just take you quickly? So we don't waste time. Hello, Ophocletus, are you there? Can Ophocletus unmute himself so we know? Or do we have any other person that wants to speak? You can see in the comment section. Thank you to everyone that has listened to me. In this case, now I was the one that bought your time and value.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but your communication is a little bit more
clear.
clear.
Can you hear me still? Can you hear me?
Yes, of course, we can hear you. Or maybe you use the chat box and drop your question if it's not clear.
Okay. Minimum.
We can barely hear you. Ophocletus, maybe you just put your question in the chat box.
No.
Yeah. Adeni, I think you can go ahead and ask yours.
Okay. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to the moderator for this session. It was an enlightening one, especially about the importance of social media, especially when you hear narratives from different people about how social media cannot exactly make a change. We've seen that happen in the past election cycle and in other social instances that we've seen across the world. Actually, I did mention something like that about how social media has been one way where voices are being heard and garnered even international attention. Now, the question I want to ask also regarding social media is, you know how it's a means where people tend to be very expressive. You sometimes use social media as like a journal. You know, you might say the things that you're thinking in your head, you express it. As we did see with one of the ministers who had expressed his views on a certain instance that happened with regards to NSAS, and called members of our Nigerian parliament and the parliament names and things like that, and then was given this ministerial position. In your understanding of social media, for someone like that, when the news started spreading about how, there's a tendency that you might become a ministerial appointee, should he have then maybe done a social media cleanup to remove items like that so they don't come into light? You also said something about how the internet never forgets. Because my own personal opinion, I feel like when you express yourself in different ways, I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago, and neither am I going to be the same person I am 10 years from now. But I feel like the things that I say, my thought process, built me to become who I am and will build me to become who I want to be. I'm not going to apologize. Not saying I won't apologize for things said in the past, but I will not wipe it away, because I want you to know that this is part of my journey. So, but just based on your expertise in the social media space, what would you advise to happen for individuals like that find themselves in that space? Do they do a cleanup or leave it there?
Okay, so yes, the internet never forgets, but there's what we call your audit trail. And then using those listening tools, you get to see computations that have been put across or narratives that have been tried to put across about you. But you yourself, you owe it to yourself to be great. Let me use the word. So let me just go to Western democracies. Do you notice that there is a pattern to the type of persons that hold the exalted offices of the president? They do not just appear from set of 93 and then he just became president. No, he would have either gone to a certain type of school, he's from a certain political ideology, or he's from a certain political class lineage, or he's from a certain course, and then he went to a certain university, he mixes with a certain crowd, and so from the get-go, he knows what is going to happen to his or her life in the next 30 years. And so that he's 7 years old now does not give him the right to be a youth, and then he spills out nonsense using whatsoever platform. And so I throw it back to you. I don't know about you. You don't know about me. We're getting to know each other today. I'm not great, as the case may be, but I will not be quick on my fingers to spew out ideas that I know I might be or will be or definitely going to be sorry about in the next few years. And so that's why the whole idea of staying in the middle comes to bear sometimes. And you're like, okay, you're trying to balance this, but there are ways in which you can express your ideas that do not serve as an insult. Remember, we talked about mannerisms. And we talked about how if you're expressing information or if you're consuming information, you need to either be reactionary, or are you reactionary, progressive, empathetic, or diplomatic, or in the case of political parties, are you Republican or Democratic? So you need to understand all of this. And if you understand all of this, it will govern how you make use of information dissemination or the publishing of information on certain social mediums. So those are things that should move you. Those are things that should lead you every single day so you do not make a mistake. Like they talk about when somebody becomes a bad child, the first thing they say is train a child in the way he will grow, and then when he grows up, he will not depart from it. Let me use the biblical descriptions. And so you do not expect somebody that has good home training to come and be a miscreant or a menace to society, to come and be basically a menace to society. You do not expect someone with good home training. And when does good home training starts from birth? And so from now, so if I'll use the word now, we are both not great. Do yourself a favor, scrub your timeline and take out things that does not need to exist there. Scrub them off, take them out, and then know that your platform is free from whatever, hoping that some people have not kept screenshots of some things you've said. And then from there going forward, you try to reorient or reinvent yourself and put yourself in a light noteworthy of positioning. So take, for instance, now, we know that everywhere we are having people canvassing for power. A new government is in place. There are positions to be filled. There are people to be removed. Even yesterday, somebody was, a DG of a parastatal was removed and someone was placed. So it means it could be any of you now. So please, you owe yourself a duty to ensure that you scrub your audit trail and make sure that you, at every single time, you are noteworthy of mention, you are noteworthy of conversation, you're noteworthy in character at any particular time. I think that basically should suffice.
Yeah, definitely does. Thank you very much for the answer.
You're welcome, sir. Do we have any other questions?
Okay, do we have any further questions? Okay, that was a brilliant question and response. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I personally wanted to ask a question earlier, but I think my network was affected. And when I came back, I listened to Adini and he practically took the words out of my mouth. So I was glad that someone shared that perspective. And like I mentioned, the response was top-notch, and definitely it has given me a bit of a perspective as to how to be guided in terms of posts. So yes, I must really commend and appreciate this response because it has been an eye-opener. Thank you. Do we have any further questions? Anyone in the chat box? I haven't noticed any. So let me just revert to Mr. Kevin Akoji, maybe to give us some final words before we round this off. Can you hear me,
So
sir?
whenever, yes, I can.
Okay.
So whenever we have conversations of this nature and people do not ask questions, there are two things. One, either you left them confused, perplexed, and whatever. And so in the euphoria of not knowing what you said, they do not have questions, or they ask questions because they completely understand, or they are not asking because they completely understand what you have said. So what I'll just say, I hope I have not left you confused, but convinced that political communication is key. It is necessary that you make it neat, sincere, understanding, not ambiguous, and at every time, whatever narrative you are putting out is clear and concise. And please feel free to engage us at any particular time whatsoever. We are Electoral College. And like we said, we do not want to see any alumni of the college anywhere outside doing things that are on college-wise, because you'll be reprimanded strictly and you'll be thrown to jail if we have those powers. If our ED will give us those powers to do that. So thank you once more for having me, and I look forward to engaging with you all in the course of your policy and governance course, and then also outside there in Nigeria. Thank you. Jill. Okay, UM.
Thank you so much, sir. Well, let's see you this, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. On behalf of the college, thank you very much, sir. It's always a pleasure to have you, and I'm sure that the students got maximum value this evening. So thank you very much, and thank you, Shola, for wonderful moderation, and thank you to all the students that joined too. We continue tomorrow for another awesome time in class. All right. So good evening, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the day.